Здравствуйте, други. Меня зовут Alexander Laszlo. That's about the extent of my Russian that you're going to get from me today, but I'm delighted to be here with you, and I hope it's okay if I continue in English. I'm speaking to you from Buenos Aires, Argentina, where we are in the midst of a very hot summer. I'm sorry I'm not able to be with you during this time of your meeting, but exactly now, while you're having this meeting, I will be in an area of Argentina that doesn't have much internet connection, and so unfortunately I have to share with you my thoughts via this little video recording. My project here in Buenos Aires, Argentina, is centered on creating the conditions for the emergence of evolutionary learning ecosystems. Now, of course, you know about this. You're working with these ideas here at the meeting. For me, the notion of an evolutionary learning ecosystem is centered on the evolutionary learning community. That's the unit, the community that learns how to learn in harmony with the dynamics of its broader environment. When you have a community of these evolutionary learning communities, a community of communities, you start to create the conditions for an evolutionary learning ecosystem. The project here is under the auspices of a nonprofit foundation called Vivir Agradecidos, Living in Gratitude, Grateful Living, inspired by the work of the Benedictine monk, Brother David Stendhal Rast. This project in particular is called Aletea, which means to flutter or to flap your wings like a butterfly. The idea is that if we flap our wings together, we can make a big change in education, but it means coming together and using the power of collective intelligence to do so. We have formed what are called community response circles, CRCs, that bring together people representing different sectors of education, whether they're education service providers, whether they are parents or they're teachers or administrators, to help solve the current problems that they face in real time via platforms on the internet, at least at the moment. So a couple of principles that we're using, and then I'm going to focus specifically on how we can engage with children in the process of creating educational futures that are meaningful, that are robust, that are viable and desirable. The principles are three that we really try to focus on. So everything that we do, both in terms of the product and in terms of the outcome, needs to be future creating. In other words, we're not looking to recapture the golden past or to affirm the status quo. So one is future creating. The second one is that it is life affirming, both in terms of the outcome and in terms of the processes that we engage with. And the third is that it's opportunity increasing for all the people who engage in it, all the people who will benefit and who will be impacted by the change in the educational system. So this brings up the point that Bill Abernethy so much emphasized, that there is no such ethical design process that involves designing for others. The only ethical process is designing with them, those who will live into the results and the outcomes of the design process must be included in the design process itself. So how do we do this when this comes to thinking about the future of education, when those who will be living into it are children? There is a practice that involves making decisions in a circle where one of the chairs in the circle is left empty. It's called the empty chair. And that is for the representation of those who are present, but without a voice in the deliberations. But we have to consider what it is that their needs are, what their probable desires are. So one way of doing this is to be sensitive to, empathic with the needs and interests of children and include their presence in our deliberations whenever we think about the design of educational systems now and for the future. But the key is to really listen into them, into their ideas, into what their values are now. We have to avoid this aspect of generational privilege, where because we are in power, the adults, we can exercise a kind of ageism where we are able to say we have more voice than the young people. That is a kind of generational privilege that really is very biased, and we have to look to how we can avoid that. So the practice of the empty chair, the empathy, is one way. Another way is to recognize that we are future ancestors now. That now, at this moment, we have to practice how to be good ancestors. And one way of doing this in terms of a practice is the 7-generation rule, the 7-generation planning and design practice. The idea is that in any community, a large community, there may be great-grandparents living together with great-grandchildren. That span covers 7 generations. So if you think of yourself and think always 7 generations ahead towards the children who are coming, 3 generations ahead and 3 generations back. That's the idea, that there's always this flow and you are always in the middle of these 7 generations. 3 generations forward and 3 generations back to respect the ancestors from whom we come as well. But how can we create those conversations with future generations now? So these are the exercises that I would hope that we can explore, that you will explore during this meeting, and that you will come up with meaningful questions and possible answers for how we can engage with future generations now, and how we can be good ancestors in service of the vibrant and thriving educational systems for the future. Thank you so much, and do svidaniya.